Thanks to those of you that submitted your questions for the NFL portion of this week's Q&A. If you're looking for those questions to be answered, check out part 1, the video before this one on the channel, and that's where the NFL questions got answered. This is going to be about other topics, the NBA, Major League Baseball, and so forth. So thanks to those of you that submitted questions for this video. Let's go ahead and get started. Keys10 asks, start us off. Have you or will you see Avengers Infinity War? I feel like one of the odd men out. Unfortunately, I have not been able to find time or opportunity to go see it. I am going to see it, absolutely. I just have not yet. And I'm okay with that, but I do really want to see it too. Peter Jedra asks, did you watch Blue Chips with Shaq and Penny, and what were your thoughts on it? I love that frickin' movie. That is one of the truly great yet underrated sports movies of all time. Nick Nolte was magnificent. All the stuff about Penny and Shaq and trying to get them to get this and giving Penny's family that was fantastic. And the fact that it didn't have the really happy ending, I thought was great too. I love Blue Chips, and I feel like it's still a movie with significant relevance today that I'm really disappointed doesn't get shown more on TV loops and stuff, because it should. And if you've never watched Blue Chips before and you love sports, you're doing yourself a great disservice. Go watch Blue Chips. Master Saruwatari. Ooh, I can tell it's getting late at night. Sorry for butchering the name. What do you think of the Cubs so far? Really early in the year. The way they're currently constructed, not a serious World Series contender. I anticipate they're going to make one big move. Who's that going to be? I know there's a lot of talk about the Machado stuff, but okay, we'll see. But even then, would that be the move that gets them there? I worry about Darvish. I have several different worries. They're in the mix, but I don't take them seriously as a World Series type of team yet, but that can obviously change. Barry McCockner, who will win the AL East? Well, it sure as hell seems like it's going to come down to the Yankees and the Red Sox, doesn't it? Because those two teams are raking. Right now, I personally think the better team would be the Yankees, and I will take the Yankees to win the AL East. Dope Savage King, who will win the Cy Young Award this year? I'm not sure about the NL yet, but in the American League, I feel pretty confident saying it's going to be a Houston Astros starting pitcher. Maybe I'd put money on Verlander right now, but still really early in the year. John DeCarlo asks, who are the Cleveland Browns of baseball? That is an excellent question. Who are the Cleveland Browns of baseball? Good Lord. The easy answer for some is going to be the Miami Marlins, but they've won 2 World Series in their existence in 2 different decades. So as poorly as they're run and as much of a joke as they are, you can't say that. Other more recent expansion teams throughout the years, like the Diamondbacks, have won a World Series. The Rays have made it to a World Series. The Rockies have made it to a World Series. Other teams at different points in time have enjoyed some level of success. So to me, it's kind of hard. The team that's standing out right now to me, though, would have to be the San Diego Padres. This has been, 2 decades? That 98 team with Kevin Brown and Tony Gwynn, that when Caminiti that went to the World Series. Yeah, I think they've been bad. They've been really bad, and they continue to be bad. I would probably point to the Padres as being the closest thing to the Cleveland Browns in baseball. And then he asked, do the Yankees have a chance to win the World Series this year? I think last year it was almost like it was a year too soon. Like you thought maybe they're on the right track, but hey, they got into the playoffs and they made a little bit of noise and showed that they were there for the future. You go make the big move for Stanton. They can absolutely win the World Series this year. Will they? Time will tell. But they're definitely in the mix. They are definitely a World Series contender. Danny Kamen, will the Phillies make the playoffs this year? I know they look all right early on, but again, it is still really early on. Let's see how they start looking when we get to June and then we get closer to the All-Star break. I'm selling on them being a playoff team as of right now, but my opinion can be changed. Coliseum Follow Territory. Must be an Oakland fan. Do you think the MLB season should be shortened? In an ideal world, yes. I'd love to see it go back to 154 games and get the playoffs to be a little bit earlier and have the World Series actually be entirely contained within October. And earlier within October. But I understand that's not very realistic and probably not going to happen. But I would love to see them go down to 154 games. Yeah, definitely. If I had my way. But I don't, so it's not going to happen. Now let's move on to some of the NBA-related questions. Had several of these. I'm not surprised. Keys 10 starts us off. Would you rather build a franchise around prime Kobe Bryant or prime LeBron James? Sorry, Kobe stans. It is LeBron James. LeBron James does a better job of getting others involved and making others better than Kobe. Kobe would make sure he got his to the point where he could bring things down around him if you weren't careful. LeBron can impact the game in more ways. I'm taking prime LeBron, period. Kieran Chase. How would winning the NBA title this year shape LeBron's legacy? You know, to me, like, there's always going to be major flaws with him. The decision was really bad. The championship chasing in Miami's not the best optics. Coming back home to Cleveland and delivering them a championship made him look a lot better and got him a lot of forgiveness and earned him a bunch of respect. And I know it changed my perspective on him a little bit. Not totally and completely, but somewhat. I mean, to bring that team back from 3-1 down against a 73-win Warriors team, it's hard not to respect that. If LeBron James led the Cavaliers to the NBA championship this year, then I feel like we could truly have a GOAT conversation between him and Jordan. I still don't think we can. I feel like if we want to start talking about LeBron as the second or third best of all time, that is totally fine. I'm totally okay with that and can make a very, very, very compelling, strong argument for that. But he wins the finals this year with that team against that level of opponent. Helps take away some of the stank of some of the finals losses over the years and the title chasing and the team hopping and stuff. It would do infinitely good for his legacy, I'll put it that way. Yakum Flavor, what would it take for someone to pass Jordan as the GOAT? You know, the funny thing is, when LeBron was in high school, I always thought someday that I was going to have to reconcile with the thought that LeBron would end up being better than Mike, and if that there was going to be one dude that was better than Mike, I thought it was going to be LeBron. How ironic all these years later, and it feels like, you know, I have to reconcile. Is it Jordan? Is it LeBron? It's still Jordan to me, and I still feel like I have good reasons for that. But the problem is, when we start talking about like Jordan and LeBron, it's not so much not a conversation that I really don't want to have, even though I really don't. It just doesn't worry me as much. It's just like you've got the Jordan stands and the LeBron stands that just get so ridiculous and idiotic in their narratives and so forth that it could be really hard to have a compelling, logical discussion on the matter. It's hard to really talk about it that way. But for those, and I know you're going to point to me with my Jordan tat and so forth and be like, oh, there's no way he would ever sit there and say that anybody was ever better than Jordan. Hey, look, it looks like I got Walter Payton on the back wall several times. And while Jordan's my favorite basketball player of all time, my favorite athlete of all time is Walter Payton. And while I still maintain that the greatest all-around football player of all time is Walter Payton, and I still stand behind that, I also understand in the grand scheme of things that guys like Jerry Rice, Lawrence Taylor, Tom Brady, Joe Montana probably surpass him in the all-time greatest player rankings. And that's something I accept. That's something I'm okay with. It doesn't diminish Walter's legacy. Because I look at the fact of, is even if I'm saying Walter Payton is 5th or Walter Payton is 10th, out of all the players, of all the teams, of all the almost 100 years in NFL history, he's a top 5 or top 10 guy. That is truly, truly special territory. Where I would get more upset, honestly, is if somebody tried to come with me with the old geezer Jim Brown was better than Walter Payton argument, which is just total shit. The reason being is because it's just total shit. I would get more bothered by that. The thing is, though, with like Jordan and LeBron specifically, is the eras are really, really different. And the things we say about LeBron and being able to translate back, maybe he would, maybe he wouldn't. I know Jordan would translate, but when people say, well, he wouldn't adjust to this game because he wouldn't be able to shoot with the proficiency he would need in today's NBA. How do you know with that guy's work ethic, he would have absolutely evolved and changed his game to match up with the modern NBA? How do you know? So it's really, really tough. It's really, really tough. Lucas Vandermeide. What's one thing the NBA should fix to make this sport watchable? They got to figure out a way to get more parity in the league. I'm sorry, the super team shit does hurt, but if we're being honest, it's kind of always been a problem for the NBA that you start off every year with only a few teams that can really be thought of as true contenders. Maybe that's because you're only dealing with 12 and 15-man rosters as opposed to the NFL where you're dealing with 53-man rosters. There's a lot more margin for error, a lot more variables, a lot more things that can go right or wrong in the NFL as opposed to the NBA. But as far as one thing they should fix, personally, we need to unpussify the game a little bit. We need a little more attitude and a little more fight, especially in the playoffs. Stop always going to the goddamn monitor when somebody gets smacked in the head and worrying about whether it's a flagrant 1 or a flagrant 2. It is a common foul. Move the fuck on. Yeah. Playoff basketball is now pussy basketball, and I'll stand by that. Trey Caldwell, thoughts on the Hornets hiring of James Borrego? Does it matter? They'll fire him in 2 or 3 years, just like they fire every other coach, just like 80% of the league fires their coach every 3 years. So it doesn't matter, honestly. Cloud asks, should the 76ers go for Kawhi or PG-13 instead of LeBron? I think there are some serious concerns about how LeBron would fit with Ben Simmons. Now, there might be some talks about LeBron wanting to play a little more off the ball, which would be wiser as he gets longer and longer in the tooth in his career, and especially if he wants to extend his career. And he wants to go start chasing numbers and legacy, and he's perfectly fine. He's entitled to be able to do that. By God, he has earned that right. I feel like the most natural fit out of those three, though, is PG-13, and it's easier via free agency than you having to trade for Kawhi, and what's Kawhi's mindset going to be, how's his health going to be, and then LeBron, who is going to be at the tail end of his career eventually, you would think, and how is he going to fit? I think the easiest fit for them would be PG-13, although it sure seems like he wants to be Laker-bound. Dave Garcia, who should the Bulls draft, and your thoughts on Lauri Markkanen? I'm pleased with Markkanen. I was excited about Markkanen coming out of Arizona, and I think he's a building block for the future. Is he a number 1 guy? Probably not. Is he a solid 2 option or a really, really damn good 3 option? Probably. As far as who the Bulls should draft, somebody that can really play. And I know that's incredibly vague, but the real truth of the matter is they need talent everywhere. You draft somebody that can really, really play regardless of position, and you figure the shit out. So if that's a Mo Bamba, or that's a Michael Porter Jr., or that's a Trae Young, or a Colin Sexton, or one of the Bridges kids, whoever, get the dude that you think is going to be the best player and figure out how to make it work. Stephen Hilton, what will the NBA need to do to make the playoffs more exciting? Well, I alluded to one thing a little bit. We need a little physicality back in the game. Like when you get to the NFL, you could feel the ramp up in intensity from regular season to playoffs. I don't get that vibe. It feels like I'm watching an extended regular season with the NBA, and that shouldn't happen. Like, the reason you love the Stanley Cup playoffs, if you have any appreciation for hockey at all, is you could feel the intensity. You could feel how things are ratcheted up. And even in a physical sport, the level of physicality and the importance on everything they do is ratcheted up significantly, and you could feel it. It's tangible. You can sense it. Major League Baseball, the style of the game changes in the playoffs. It's more about pitching and defense and small ball and advancing the runner and getting one run at a time, as opposed to get them on, hit it high, and watch it fly, 3-run home run baseball. But when I watch the NBA, it doesn't feel really any different. The playoffs could also be a little more exciting if you had a few more teams that were legitimately contenders. But I don't know what the league can do about that at this point. JT Evans. Here's my hot take on the Miami Heat. They should move Spoelstra into Riley's role and hire Dwayne Casey and then start to rebuild. Your thoughts? Why? Why? How the fuck would Spoelstra want to give up his coaching gig when he's won 2 NBA championships, no matter what you want to say about it? Why the hell should he take a backseat for Dwayne Casey? Why would Dwayne Casey want to go there? No, I don't like your idea at all, if I'm being honest, and I am. I think it sucks. Okay? Fair enough. Young Savage. Are the Sixers realistically the only team LeBron could sign with where he could contend for an NBA championship? No. He could go to the Lakers, and maybe by year 2 they get into the mix. He could go to the Rockets if he agreed to defer some with Harden and Paul, and they obviously would probably become the favorites at that point. So I don't think that the Sixers are the only ones. Not at all. Not at all. Not whatsoever. Lawrence Grani, do you think this upcoming NBA draft will be better than the last one? Maybe by a little bit. Maybe by just a little bit, but I don't think by a ton. And then Peter Jedra finishes us off by asking, in the 90s, did you think any of those teams in the finals could beat Jordan's Bulls? And did you worry about any of them? Honestly, I didn't worry about the Lakers in 91 because I thought they were an old team, and the Bulls finally got over the hump of the Pistons that they were going to walk through anybody that they played in the finals. 92, I thought the Blazers were pretty good, but they just weren't good enough to ultimately beat the Bulls, and the Bulls were a 67-win team that year. 93, the Suns technically had the best record in the league, but I never really worried about the Suns that much. 96, the Sonics, please. 97 and with the Jazz, I thought they were going to hang tough with them, but I still thought the Bulls were better. The closest I could come up with, honestly, would have been the Jazz in 98, but even then, I still had that arrogance of belief in Jordan and Phil Jackson and Pippen that they would find a way to get the job done. But out of those 6 teams, out of those 6 finals, the one I was absolutely the most worried about was 98, the last dance. That's the one. That's the one. The other 5, not really much at all, honestly. Well, that is it for this Q&A. Thanks to all of you that asked your questions. I enjoyed this quite a bit. Do another one soon. And meanwhile, check out my first 2018 NBA mock draft on here. It's only for the 14 pre-lottery picks, but hey, it's a start, okay? And make sure you check out the team-by-team draft grades for the 2018 NFL draft on this channel, and I got a lot more content coming up in the next couple of weeks, so stay tuned, bitches.